Hello, friends, and welcome in to Leading Off right here on Fantasy Pros without Joey P. No Joe Pisapia. I do a pretty good trumpet, by the way. It's one of the few impressions that I can do. I am Chris Welsh. I am your host for the foreseeable future. I apologize that you have to live on without Joey P, but we will do so because Joe did actually leave literally in the craziest, most important time of the season because, this is where we're going to win our fantasy championships. This is where people are going to go and play fantasy football. We take advantage of it. And, a trade deadline where all the big players and all the big news is going to move on. But I am not doing it solo because today joining me is the Athletics' own Mike Curlin. You can find him on Twitter at Mike_Curlin. Sleepy K no more. What's up, Mike? What's up, buddy?
What do you mean no more? I'm still sleeping. I'm just
sleeping on podcasts.
Just leaving it, man. Those are good times. I had that whole conversation with my wife the other day about it's been like 3 years since I started podcasting on my couch and that's why I fell asleep. You don't podcast on the couch. Don't do that. Do not recommend. Obviously, it's been one heck of a journey, and thank you for having me, man. It's always fun to get on here and hang out with you a little bit.
No, it's good to have you. I mean, this is actually a perfect situation for you as well. Mike has been known for all of his crazy big breakdowns. We're going to do a lot of breakdowns into this with all of the coverage over at The Athletic, also the Bases Loaded podcast. Do you have anything going rest of season? I know the turn is happening. What are you still doing over at The Athletic right now?
So I think I might have one more lineup article. What I do over The Athletic is it's kind of a niche of mine as I drop everything I had prepared in terms of notes and pen onto the floor. I do the whole I do lineup breakdowns. I look at playing time situations, who's playing platoons. I'm really big on focusing on those. So it seems like the Giants and the Rays really frustrate me. But what I do is I do that for The Athletic. I talk about potential call-ups, who's affected in which way and why whenever there's a new player added to a team or a new player called up and all that. Just always quick to be on it and try to break it down as to like who you might want to look at in deeper formats. A lot of the times this affects deeper formats, and then I carry that over. And for the Patreon, I do that for them like once a month in season. And then for my Patreon, patreon.com/skplaybook, I do like 3 or 4 of these write-ups a week. Just again, team by team, what's happening, who's hitting well, who's doing poorly. Is there any new platoon forming? Is there playing time issues popping up? And it's just a constant. It's almost like just daily. It's like a daily concept of it's a daily grind. It really is because, and I've stopped doing it every day because some of it gets redundant. So I do. That's why I try to get 2 to 3 day chunks because you'd be surprised how much changes in a 2 to 3 day period between injuries, between this guy's. Oh, suddenly he went from starting every day versus lefties to now he's only started 1 of 3. And these are the types of things that we keep an eye on and really focus on and discuss how these can have this fallout in your fantasy lineups, and maybe you should make this add to your team or drop this player or maybe throw him on your bench, stash him for a little bit because this trade deadline has been a big focus of mine in these write-ups because so much is set to change.
And we're going to talk a lot about this. Dr. Glenn, shout out, says, who is even Joey P? I need one of those. I can't be like Chrissy Dubs. That doesn't quite work. I have the same ring to it. And I appreciate Wonky, as she says, I prefer my host to have hair. And shout out to Wonky too. The pleasant surprise as the football crew just completely ditched us, and I was ready to go full bore with some of the show sheet, and Wonky had a bunch of stuff ready. So I want to give a big shout out to Kelly for doing all of that. And you will see Wonky on Wednesday for everybody. So let's get into all the stuff here for the day, all of the craziness, because we actually have a weekend to cover. And the trade deadline is 30 hours away, something like that, 28 hours away. But we had the one big, massive trade. And a little bit of pokey me here, Curlin. You weren't here for this, obviously, but everybody in the chat should know one thing. I do not get to have a hat tip of Fran Mil-Reyes, as I have been reminded about this year, but I do get a hat tip about my takes on the trade deadline and the Seattle Mariners, because the Mariners made a big trade over the weekend. And I had been saying, Joe kept asking, trades. And I kept saying, I think the Mariners need to strike first. They need to go. Luis Castillo was one of those names. I think that was literally what he asked before we left on Friday. Hey, maybe it was Thursday, or where should Luis Castillo go? I said, I think the Mariners make sense. I think they should strike first before the market. And that is exactly what they did. And they shocked a lot of people by moving Noelvi Marte, which is a huge dynasty piece. They also moved Edwin Arroyo. It was actually a really big trade. I broke it down over on the Prospect One podcast if you guys want to hear it, for the Reds and what the Reds are looking like now. But Curlin, I want to ask you, Luis Castillo, Not a lot of wins. We're actually going to talk about that here in just a little bit. A struggling offense with Cincinnati. The stuff is there. Do you see a big fantasy uptick now that he is over and he is with the Seattle Mariners that are fighting and they're in contention, maybe a better ballpark, some better offense? What type of fantasy uptick do you see in Luis Castillo as a Mariner now?
I think you hit right on it. Is first off, this year specifically, oddly enough, over his career, from what I saw, Castillo's ERA was actually worse on the road. I don't know how he managed that one, but at the end of the day, better ballpark, better team context, more chances for wins, which it is a category in most fantasy formats, even points leagues where wins get you like 7 points depending on your format, 5 points, whatever. I think it ultimately helps all around. This year alone, he has like a 1.5 ERA difference between his home and road splits too. So there's nothing not to like here. Everything, it's all arrows pointing up.
Yeah, and it's something that I'm pretty happy about. I'm happy with the move, especially if you're a Luis Castillo owner. I would feel really good about it. There's also something you could throw out to say that, like, if you were to own Luis Castillo, that trade move when he hasn't had a start yet really could get a solid return in a dynasty. If you're not quite in it, this is a big boost to his dynasty value. Why you hold and you don't move off of talented players that might have some weird struggles. And I don't know, even into redraft, if you're wanting to mix stuff up, if you're doing really good on the SP side, it's something that you can take a look at. And huge move for the Mariners. I wonder if they're done. I kind of don't think they're done. I think there's got to be something else in the works. It does not look like it's going to be Juan Soto. Ben reports out that the Soto sweepstakes is down to 3 teams, though I am waiting for the crucial 4th team, mystery team. There's always mystery team that has joined in. The current sweepstakes participants are the Padres, Cardinals, and Dodgers. Curlin, I have been very vocal about the Padres being the team for over a month, even when it wasn't. The Cardinals seem to kind of maybe have the best mixture that fits with them. And I think you never count out the Dodgers. It's something I actually created a Dodger Soto trade on ITL Fantasy Baseball the other day. So does Juan Soto get traded in the next 24 hours, and to whom?
I can't believe we're having this discussion, but I do think he gets dealt because I think they're desperate to move some of these. They're trying to offload Corbin with them. That contract is horrendous. And I think they're going to have to offload that contract in order to justify trading Soto in the first place, because realistically, Soto is going to, the money it's going to take to re-sign him, the haul that it's going to take to obtain him. There is no such thing as a big enough return, I think, for a Juan Soto, because Juan Soto is what you hope all these prospects even become a third of. You know what I mean? So I think the Padres ultimately do have the best chances. And I say that because they have Abrams and Ruiz, 2 guys right now, for some reason, are called up and aren't even playing, but they're still 2 of the top prospects in this organization. They could throw in, they have the depth to make this move. Not to mention, I'm starting to get the idea that they don't care for their prospects. I mean, you don't call up Abrams. No other team in the major leagues would probably call up Abrams and Ruiz and just to sit them on the bench or platoon them. But the Padres have, and they've done it in favor of guys like Mazzara, guys like Voit gets DH, Hosmer, all these guys that it's like, why are these guys getting in the way of these young potential studs or young guys that have all this upside that produce at the highest levels in the minors, aren't even getting a chance to play even somewhat regularly in the majors? So it almost makes sense that the way that it appears the Padres view their top prospects would be why they would be so willing to ship them off and include others in this deal to go get a Juan Soto, a guy that is better than other prospects, plus will slot right into a need for them and produce right in the middle of that lineup.
Yeah, a couple funny things. I'm actually undergoing this thing I do on my In This League Patreon, inthisleague.com. It's called the P1 ADP Mocks, and it's designed to create a prospect ADP, which does not exist, and it's a value chart as well. So I think it's really valuable. People want to check it out. They're literally being drafted right now. It'll be on the Patreon this month. But a funny thing, just to this point, was we found CJ Abrams was actually still in the system. He's the only one that's in the system because he had met requirements of being on the roster, but not overpassed the at-bats marker where he loses prospect eligibility. He's the only one of all those guys. He's been around so long that he has been on the roster so much, he still has not got the at-bats that takes him off of roster qualifications. The value system that they have on him and where they have put him and the chances to succeed have been really minimal. There was a tweet out about 10-15 minutes ago from MLB Network with a hypothetical on Soto, and it's pretty much what we've talked about on this show for the last couple of weeks. Soto for Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel, James Wood, who is their number 3 prospect, and Jackson Merrill, who, just side note, James Wood and Jackson Merrill are best friends. And like when Wood was rehabbing, Merrill was also rehabbing. They would like watch each other play out here in Complex, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. That's a huge prospect haul. I don't think another team can really necessarily compete with that prospect haul, but the key is going to be, do they want those major league guys? And that's where the Dodgers provide the pitching side, and the Cardinals, I think, provide the hitting side, and guys like Gorman and Dylan Carlson, if they were to come out there. So it'll be really, really interesting to see. There's some other trade rumors going on. Montes is a target for the Padres, Twins, Yankees, and Blue Jays. I saw John Heyman report last night that the Yankees, their sole focus is on Frankie Montas. The Astros are looking at Christian Vasquez in addition to Wilson Contreras. I have been putting Wilson Contreras on with the Astros for the last couple of weeks. I think maybe Pedro Leon would make sense, even though I know it's a rental. The Guardians have inquired about Sean Murphy. The A's are making him available. They're making all the guys available. And the Phillies are interested in Ramon Laureano. So the A's are going to have a complete just decimation of their roster. Do you expect any surprises, just real quick, at the trade deadline? Do you think we're going to see anything nuts and crazy? As someone we haven't been talking about, my biggest crazy suggestion has been, if Juan Soto gets traded today on Monday, I expect Shohei Ohtani to be traded on Tuesday. If it comes down to the wire, I'm going to kind of put it as a 50-50, but it's just my little prediction is if Soto is moved on Monday, Ohtani is moved on Tuesday. I don't know if that's that much of a shock, but Mike, do you expect any shocks in the next 30 hours?
I think if there's going to be one, it's kind of a cop-out because I have a hard time giving a true name, but I would think it could be a guy that was signed to a deal that people maybe were surprised the deal happened, like a Javi Baez. Javi Baez for the Tigers, a team that doesn't seem like they're going to be competing in the near future, although maybe they think their window might be next year or the year after. Maybe they realized, because they've already talked about pretty much everyone being on the table. Maybe Javi Baez is like one of those guys that's like, well, you know what? Maybe this was a mistake. Let's see if we can salvage this and see if another team will take him on. Maybe I doubt Chris Bryant, but maybe that's the type of thing. Like maybe one of these guys, if Trevor Story was healthy, with the Red Sox kind of leaning towards being buyers and sellers, the reports say both. And that they never mentioned Story being safe. They've mentioned, Bogarts by name. At least I haven't seen the reports, but they've mentioned Bogarts by name and others by name, Devers, that are safe. So it's like maybe one of these offseason signings that were surprising in the first place, Marcus Stroman, guys that were on teams that like, okay, this is weird that they made these signings, become trade bait for these teams all of a sudden.
Maybe Bias goes back to the Mets. That's something to throw out. Maybe, they refine him there. Dan, this is actually a good question. Will the trades trade away a catcher? Yeah, they should. I think Danny Jansen should be someone they're putting out on the market who would make a ton of sense. Bring Gabriel Moreno back up to go with Alejandro Kirk. Trade from your strengths as much as possible to fix some of those weaknesses, because the Blue Jays are not really tied with anybody. So that's actually a really good question. I think they should. Finishing up the headlines, Aaron Judge continues to be the biggest beast on the planet. I was saying this yesterday, his stats through July 31st are stats for an entire season that every single player would kill for and would get them all the money in the world. Judge homered 3 times over the weekend, now up to 42, which is 10 below his career high set in 2017. And here is a marker I want to give you as well. Aaron Judge has more homers than any single person in our home run contest. And we've had the season, every single day of baseball, we have been able to make picks on these guys, and Aaron Judge has more homers in real life than we could just picking players every single day. That's pretty fun. And then lastly, Clay Holmes blew a save, giving up a 3-run homer to Sal Perez in the 9th as they lost 8-6. And my dreams and hopes of Clay Holmes being the closer down the drain. Some injuries. Chris Bryant left Saturday's game with foot pain. Curly, I'm out on Chris Bryant. I've been saying it. I'm pretty far out on Chris Bryant. Do you have hopes of salvaging the rest of the season for him, which has just been really about a month? He's had about a month that worked. All of his homers, I think, came in the month of July, if I remember correctly. Do you have any hopes on the back half of this year?
I did until I think reports came out that he's been dealing with like plantar fasciitis of late. I think since the All-Star break or so. I remember reading about it yesterday. And dealing with that, how that can be for athletes in general. It doesn't matter the sport, and that could hinder his progress the rest of the year. And I was really hopeful, but you know what this reminds me of? It's the whole Daniel Murphy deal of like 2019 or wherever it was when Murphy went over to the Rockies. That hype built up. It was a similar skill set in terms of being like a really solid bat, just going to cores, getting a chance to really exploit cores for what it was, and injuries derailed him, age derailed Murphy. Obviously not a direct comp, but it was one of those things where it's like I bought in preseason. I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to jump his ADP up. I got him in a few spots. I was really happy. And then early drafts, I was even happier. I was like, sweet, I got him at the discount. I was happy to take him near pick like 80-ish, I think it was early on. And because the skill set, but ultimately it's me trying to justify why I took him early. At the end of the day, it seems like it feels like a busted pick, and I don't see much.
Do you think he's a sell, right? Like at all costs type of thing? Because I think obviously he's a sell, but you got trade deadlines happening. I just had a trade deadline end in the Scott White league that I play in, but some are going to go through. I think some standards on a lot of sites are like August 13th. I want to say right in that range is like a general fantasy trade deadline. If you had a team poking around, want to take a shot, is there a low that you wouldn't take on Chris Bryant at this point?
I'd be willing to. I definitely in redraft, I'd be looking to sell for sure. Dynasty, I'd actually, if you're a contender or if you're Windows next year, I think he's a great buy if you can right now, because I do think the value is dropping, even though we know a healthy Chris Bryant can be pretty solid. And I do think he'll get right in the offseason. And, Chris Bryant has these moments of like being injured, playing well, but maybe he'll miss some time next year. Whatever. Dynasty leagues, I think he's more of a buy. Redraft, that's tough. I think I would obviously at this point, if someone's willing to give me anything that can help my team, I would probably sell. I'd be willing to sell 75 cents on the dollar type of deal probably right now.
I think so. Bizzard traded for Chris Bryant 3 weeks ago. I hope it wasn't too much, but I really, really do. Bobby Witt, the day after Julio Rodriguez was hit on the wrist, which I want to point out, or on the hand, Scott Bogman was at that game, and I told him for Hancock rules, he's no longer around him because he hurt him. The day after, Bobby Witt Jr. was sidelined after getting hit on the hand by a pitch. No x-rays have been done as of yet, which is probably a good sign. Not so great for Julio Rodriguez, though the x-rays were negative. He had some swelling, and they put him on the IL. So he's on the IL for a tiny bit. Bobby Witt, no necessary sign of it yet. Miguel Sano back to his home, which is the IL on Friday with knee issues. He just lives there. And Ke'Bryan Hayes, Eric Hosmer, Ty France, Tyler O'Neill, all considered day-to-day with various injuries across the board. Here's a fun fact, getting back to the top of the show. This is an amazing one, too, and this is kudos to Wonky for putting this on. Reds pitcher Luis Castillo is one of just 7 pitchers to enter the All-Star break with an ERA under 2.8 and no more than 3 wins with at least 13 starts on here. The others, are you ready for the others here? Clayton Kershaw, 2018, Jeff Samardzija, 2014, Bilecki in 1992, Steve Carlton in 1985, Swan in 1978, and Phoebus in 1970. I don't know. I'm assuming that's Phoebus, like a little phoenix in there. Those are the names. There hasn't been anybody since 2018, and since 2000, there's only been 2, Jeff Samardzija and Clayton Kershaw. The undervalue of potential wins is mind-blowing on Luis Castillo. That is why you hit home like, this is a huge plus for him being in Seattle. This is a huge potential plus on wins. Let's get Julio Rodriguez back, though. Might be the most important thing of all of those. This day in baseball, I thought this was just interesting, though not like fascinating. 1943, Rip Sewell of the Pirates throws his dewdrop ball in a game. Sewell loops the ball 18 to 20 feet high on its way to the strike zone. Later, it's called a blooper or an ephus ball. The pitch is more than a gag, and Sewell is on his way to a 20-win season. But an 18 to 20-foot dip, that's like curveball stuff, Curlin. Like, I love the idea of that. That is actually one of my only things I think I really, really love about old time baseball. I don't have the tradition like a lot of other people with most of this stuff, but like weird just wind-ups and just video game like backyard type of throws is one of my favorite things. Like I get really locked into, those Instagram videos of like, hey, this is the best game to play, and it's like that wiffle ball game, but the ball like curves, and I'm such a sucker for that. Like those type of video game things are my favorite thing on the planet. Just goofy looking pitches.
And every so often, we actually get pitches at the major league level. It looks like those wiffle ball pitches, like
That's what
Dustin
I
May's
love.
two-seamer, sinker, whatever you want to call it. His that frisbee, it's more giftable than it is wiffleable. I think I saw shout out to and someone put that was like word for word. Ryan Venancio on Twitter tweeted that. And I was like, that's very true. We're about to see all these gifts of him, but he doesn't usually miss a lot of bats with it. But yeah, it's fun though because MLB pitchers, man, they've really and coaches obviously really figured out how to make a baseball move in ways that I never thought I'd see the day that they do that,
Here's a
going as
question.
fast as they are.
Who has the most giftable pitch in baseball? Because you just bring up a really interesting thing to me. I would say Dustin May's that two-seamer. Emmanuel Clase's cutter has got to be in there. That one pitch by Aaron Ashby, which I think was a two-seamer, that one this year that went like whoop, like right out was on there. I don't know if I think of any breaking pitches, though a really good knuckling curveball is there.
A good changeup, like with good fade away from like a lefty or righty. Like,
okay, but can you think like I'm gonna say?
oh,
I
you're
think
thinking of someone.
yeah, like I'm talking like a specific pitch from
Devin
a guy,
Williams.
Devin Williams, his
Whatever you want to call it.
the Dominator, the Terminator, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Okay, so this would be such a great poll. Devin Williams, whatever the pitch is, Dominator, Emmanuel Clase's cutter, or Dustin May's two-seamer, which people probably forget about. And that's what Brad's right here immediately went Devin Williams changeup. Yeah. I'm curious if the chat, if you guys have any others, tell me who's the most giftable pitch and pitcher, the pitcher with their pitch. I would love to know because the Devin Williams is a really, really good one. Emmanuel Clase is the first person that came to my mind when I thought about that. Let's go through some stat heroes on the weekend. Jake Odorizzi. How often do you say Jake Odorizzi is a stat hero? 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, giving up only 2 hits for Houston. Palante 8 with 8 strikeouts. Merrill Kelly 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, 3 hits, couple walks. I think he should be a potential trade bait guy. Reed Detmers 7 innings, 12 strikeouts, giving up 1 earned run, and Carlos Rodon 10 strikeouts on 7. Is Reed Detmers fixed, Curlin?
Yeah, everything I'm seeing on Twitter, a lot of guys that follow pitching way more closely than I do. I'll be the first to admit hitting is my strength in terms of analysis. But it looks like it, man. You just look at some of the stuff, the change in pitch mix, the change in movement profile on some of the pitches. It's everyone's talking about it, and I think this is the Detmers we were all hoping for. When we were all kind of hyping him up preseason type of thing, and he's hitting on that potential now. What will always hold him back in fantasy is obviously the lack of 2 start weeks, given the Angels always going 6-man in the rotation. But that could change if they do. You mentioned if Ohtani's on the move, maybe they go 5-man and Detmers gains even more value. But I do think the Detmers we're seeing now is there's something to it. Maybe he won't sustain this level as MLB teams adapt, but what he's doing seems very real.
Yeah, I mean, he's a movement command guy. He's not a huge, big, crazy blow away stuff guy, and he's found his command. I mean, you know what? Detmers has got some big old loopy curveball sliders that he throws. Some others, by the way, that got thrown in here. Riley said Brash's slider. That's a great one. That is a super giftable one. Brad said Seth Lugo's curveball. Okay, I'll give you that one. That's for sure. Let's see. I thought I saw. Oh, and Wonky's right. This is the other one that I thought of immediately was the older school Kershaw 12-6 curveball. Yeah. Like nothing gets me going. I love crazy wiffle ball looking pitches, but nothing gets me out of my seat and makes me act like a crazy person than a knee buckling changeup. I'll just, it's just like a gif. Like the guys are like, oh, like that's what gets me. It happens when I see just a knee buckling 12-6 curveball. So I completely agree with that one. On the hitter side, Alec Boehm, 4 for 5 this weekend with a homer and RBI. Corey Dickerson went 3 for 4 with a homer. James Outman had a home run in his major league debut. I saw him in the Arizona Fall League. I don't know if there's a ton there. Him and Lars Nootbaar both played together. I thought Nootbaar was a much more impressive player, but 3 for 4 with a homer. There's a little something there. I just don't believe the Dodgers would give him enough time. I believe someone asked in the chat. Hunter Renfroe got 4 for 4 with a bomb. Anthony Rizzo had a homer with 3 RBIs. Anthony Santander had a homer, 3 for 4. Ramon Laureano, before he gets traded, had a bomb. Jerkson Profar, Charles LeBlanc, and Matt Chapman with a homer over the weekend. Some stat zeros. I never like to see my boy Shane McClanahan in here, but he went 4 1/3, giving up 7 hits, 5 earned runs. He had 3 walks, only 4 strikeouts. Pablo Lopez, a lot of rumors. Craig Mish had actually, you're wearing your Marlins hat, Curlin. Mish had talked about the last start maybe being his last one and had speculated again about him getting traded. Well, he got lit 2 2/3, 12 hits, 6 earned runs. What type, just quickly, Pablo Lopez getting traded, and what would a return have to look like, do you think, for your Marlins?
Well, I think the Marlins have what, like 2 or 3 years left of control too. So that's like a big. There's gonna be. It's not gonna be obviously the level of a Montas or Castillo, but you got to think it'll at least bring back a solid, like at least one solid prospect, one upper top tier prospect from a system, and maybe a couple. Less. I don't think he's gonna bring back like what did Castillo bring, like 2 or 3 of their top 5 prospects back in return.
Yeah,
I think Pablo Sandoval. Whoa,
Pablo Sandoval would be great. I don't think Pablo Sandoval would be good in the trade, but I know what you mean. Yeah, Pablo
Lopez.
Yeah.
Sandoval is way better than Pablo Lopez, obviously, but Pablo Lopez, I think, would bring back at least one high-end prospect, maybe a second, depending on what teams get involved and how desperate a team gets if they miss out on both Castillo and Montas. So that right there, the market could right there push itself up. But Lopez is a solid real-life pitcher as well as fantasy. He will give you innings. The shoulder is always a concern, but it's held up this year.
Yeah.
And again, those years of control really matter, and it should bring back quality versus quantity. But it's also the Marlins. I don't know what to expect anymore. They don't exactly develop hitting well either. So I'm optimistic they get some hitting prospects, but they haven't been able to develop the hitting the best over the years. So I don't know how much
I feel like, I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel like the Yankees are the key for them. The Yankees are trying to move Oswald Peraza in a lot of trades. No one will take.
Makes sense.
Like Oswald Peraza for Pablo Lopez would just make all the sense in the world. But him getting lit up could always theoretically hurt the trade value. JD Brubaker gave up 7 earned runs as well. On the hitting side, of course, I took a Goldie weekend. He went 0 for 5 for 3 strikeouts. Hey, me. Cole Calhoun, 0 for 3, 3 strikeouts. Hilliard and Andrus both with 3 Ks as well. Friendos, oh, you know what? I didn't even look if everyone's going to be so mad if there's a brand new board, and I don't think there is. So unfortunately, I can't give you guys good news that there's a brand new home run board, but we have the same winner. We have the exact same winner. Things have not changed. But the Night King of the North is mounting a comeback as he had a Kyle Schwarber bomb over the weekend, got him up to 35. So high Cubby 2016 still has 37. Night King North has 35, and we got let's see, Eskel and D Blum at 34, and then the crew just kind of moves down. Mike Mayer is still on the list, so apologies. I'll see if we can get the home run board back here into the near future so you guys can see that. But we still got our main guy, and they do not have as many homers as Aaron Judge. They're missing by 5. Friendo, some bets. Go check out our friends over at BetMGM. Download the app or go online, betmgm.com. Use the promo code leading off. If you're watching on the YouTube and video, you see it right below me. Leading off. Right now, they're offering a $1,000 risk-free first bet when you use the code leading off. Let's do it, and let's do that together. Let's do that. Somebody do it. Let me know, and let's get your $1,000 risk-free bet together, and let's see if we can win that sucker. What I have done for you guys today is 2 things. For the foreseeable future, I'm going to give you the number 1 total base prop and the number 1 strikeout prop according to bettingpros.com. They have their MLB prop cheat sheet, which I think is invaluable. Go and check it out, and I'm going to give you the top props, and I'm going to give you 2 I like. The top prop over at the, as Joe would say, the Sugar House is Jordan Alvarez. Jordan Alvarez total bases versus Boston. Fantasy Pros has them projected at almost 4, and you get plus money at 1.5. That's a pretty good bet. Plus money 105. The top strikeout prop is Andrew Heaney under. Last week, oh man, 4.5. I took it. He was on a pitch count. He got to 4. He would have destroyed it if he wasn't going to only throw 60 pitches. They're projecting 5. The number is 6.5 on FanDuel, and that is the under. It's pretty juiced up, though. The 2 plays I like, Tariq Skubal strikeouts. Those are at 5.5 minus 115. And this is probably my favorite bet of the day is Starling Marte total bases minus 105. It's almost even money. It's against Patrick Corbin. I believe in the month of July, Starling Marte had 11 multi-hit games. So the odds are in his favor, and they really always are whenever Patrick Corbin is on the slate. A couple DFS stuff. Joe's huge on the DFS side. On DK, a couple pitchers you might want to take a look at. Scherzer's going to be your your big play. He's 10.6. Tariq Skubal, I like the strikeouts. I believe it's Minnesota, and he's 8,000. I think that would be a really great pairing that you could put together. Over on FanDuel, a couple pitching prices, 11.6 for Scherzer. John Gray is at 10, and Skubal is 9.8. If you're looking to get some stacks together, Mets, meet the Mets. Gonna hit up Patrick Corbin, and I can't say other, inappropriate things about Patrick Corbin that would happen there. Mets, I would stack them. Guardians and White Sox would be my 3 stacks. Those are also very heavy on implied run totals today, if you want to tag those teams. Mr. Curlin, we have a home run contest. You have not been here all season, so I can't necessarily anoint that this will be worth 40 points, so you're immediately in the discussion. But please, give us your home run call for the day. Put our people in a good position. Who do you got? You're muted.
Of course I am. I had to do one rookie mistake before the show ended.
You got like 95% of the show in. You were nailing it. You were perfect. Nothing. You were. This is the last thing. This was the last thing.
I know.
I love it. All right, what's your home run call?
That's Sleepy K coming out right there. It's the obvious. It has to be done. But I mean, you're talking about a guy who's coming off a weekend that he just had, having his career year. Gonna get signed to a massive contract, and it has to be Aaron Judge, right? I mean, he has a 951 OPS against lefties. He gets to face Marco Gonzalez, which soft tossing lefty as we all know. Like it just makes sense. I don't see how no one's slowing him down right now, and the only thing that's gonna slow him down is not playing tonight. So you got to go with the obvious at this point.
Yeah, Brad's asked, does Judge have a shot at the record? Bonds had 45 homers at the end of July in 2001. We're not that far off, my friend. We are not that far off. I'm going to go with Pete Alonso. I'm going to go against Patrick Corbin. Give me big bombs on Pete Alonso. I'd be comfortable with a total base marker on him as well, but I'm going to go with the leadoff guy. I'm going to go with the guy at the top of the lineup with the New York Mets against Patrick Corbin, but I am super, super comfortable with Pete Alonso in both of those, and he will be my home run call. I know Joe has Aaron Judge in perpetuity. I don't think Mayer updated that, so we are going to have to, it'll just be me and the guest that's going on, and I just jinxed it. Maybe I did. Friends, that is it. Find Mike Curlin on Twitter at Mike_Curlin. Mike, you were just pimping. You got probably one more article over at The Athletic that people can find, but people can always find your stuff over on your Patreon, which, what is that again?
Patreon.com/SKPlaybook. That's where you can find all my constant ongoings for the rest of the baseball season, and should be throwing some football stuff on there. Not a football show. No one cares about football, but if you do like both, there will be both.
Okay. Oh, and Mayer's taking Pete Alonso, so he is with me. We're about, dang it. Come on, Mayer, take somebody else. Don't take the guy. I'm not that I'm hitting any, by the way. So if anything, this is a curse for Mike Mayer. Well, Mike Curlin, he did fantastic. Everyone go check him out. Follow him on Twitter. He's a great follow, especially in the baseball season when you're looking for those notes. Curlin has got you covered. Friends, thank you guys for hanging out with me. Joey is gone, but I am here for you the rest of the way through. Coming up tomorrow, trade deadline. Casey Bubba is going to be joining me on the show, and we will be here 6 or 7 hours before it's all over. We'll probably have lots of trades to hit through, so make sure you're checking us out on the YouTube Live and the podcast. For Mike Curlin, I am Chris Welsh. This is Leading Off, and we are out of here. Goodbye, friends.